Hi, everybody, and welcome to a new edition of Newsmakers. I'm Jerry Roberts. It is Friday, August 30th, and we have a special election edition. I'm here with my colleague, Josh Molina, and we're doing a special debriefing on Wednesday night's city council forums, which were co-sponsored by Newsmakers and Josh's podcast, Santa Barbara Talks, and our friends at TV Santa Barbara. And we did an hour each with the major candidates in District 1 and the candidates in District 3. And if you're watching this, it's in the show notes. You can find the links to both of those and also in the podcast edition. But I thought Josh and I would just spend a little time today, kind of going through it. And it's always hard to moderate a debate. We co-moderated the debate, and sort of think of what the news story would be if you were covering the debate. So it's hard to do those two things at the same time. So I thought we'd take a step back today and look at it as reporters and what we would have found notable about it. So, what was your bottom line, Chief? Just overall of the evening? I thought it was the greatest political event since the Lincoln Douglas debates,
Yeah.
uh, which, as you know, I covered. But what was your takeaway?
Well, it was so fun to do and such a pleasure to do it with you because you make everything classy and professional. So I enjoyed that part of it to be able to share that space with you. And hopefully we can do it again at some point. But it is tough when you're in the moment because you're doing these dual roles. But I think that I think the story, so you look at these things, you have incumbents and then you have challengers. And so the challengers have to make the case for why they deserve to be in that spot instead of those who are there now. And so you can't really just kind of go out there kind of mid or soft. You have to really tell people, like, here's what this person did wrong, and here's how I'm going to do it differently. Here's how I'm going to be better. So if we look at District 1, I think Wendy Santa Maria did a better job of trying to separate herself from Councilmember Gutierrez and the incumbent. She did a better job strategically than in the other contest in District 3 because she very clearly said right away at the first couple minutes, I will show up. I will be there for all the important meetings. And so that is the narrative that they're trying to hit her and her allies to say, Councilmember Gutierrez has not been there during her first term. I will be there. And she even had a line where she said, of course, we want someone local who grew up here, but we need someone, period, meaning Alejandra did grow up here, but we just need someone to show up. And so Wendy did a good job, I think, of letting the audience know I will not be that and I will be something else. And so that I think she made that case. So if you're watching it and you are a Wendy Santa Maria fan, you are a stronger Wendy Santa Maria fan. If you're somebody who liked Alejandra Gutierrez going into it, you probably still like her because she spoke to her base. She didn't waffle. She didn't try to say she's something she's not. She stuck to her theme, which is the district is diverse. There are many property owners. There are many people who own homes. And she says she knows her district best. She grew up there. And she is trying to take a more moderate tone to the contest. And so she spoke to her base. People, I think, who like her thought she did a good job. Did she sway anyone in the middle? I don't know. It's possible. She did sort of call out the Democratic Party. She did say, "Hey, I'm there for public service, not policy or not politics." And so there may be some people in the middle who like that messaging, who say, "Yeah, we don't want all the partisan stuff. We just want local issues." So she may have pulled some of those people. So I think that Wendy probably made a better case for saying why I deserve to be there then Alejandra Gutierrez made a case for why she deserves to stay there. Now, a lot is going to happen between now and election day. And it's really going to come down to who's going to work harder,
Yeah. Yeah.
who's going to make more calls, who's going to knock on more doors, who's going to raise more money, who's going to do more advertising, money, message, organization. And so that's what it's going to come down to. If Alejandro Gutierrez is willing to equal the amount of work that Wendy Santa Maria and the Dem Party are going to do, she will have a shot of getting reelected. But if she's going to take it for granted, we see these things are going to be low. I mean, not low turnout, but district elections, there's not a lot of turnout. So it's going to come down to a piece of mail. It's going to come down to a few, Saturday afternoon walks. It's going to be really close, as we saw with Doss Williams. I mean, even right as disliked as he was by everyone on the planet at that moment in time, he still could have would have been reelected had he just worked a little harder. So it
Yeah.
matters.
Yeah, no, I think that's I agree with everything you say. In terms of, sort of defining what the election's about, I thought Alejandra said it's about independence. I'm independent from the Democratic Party. I'm independent from any, ideological set of principles or ideas. I'm sometimes I'm for the cops, and sometimes I'm for landlords, and sometimes I'm for renters. And I thought Wendy really did say, it's about ideology, progressive ideology. She made a couple of attempts to say, oh, I'm going to be for everyone, and I'm really for fiscal conservatism and things like that. But basically, I mean, if you looked at it down the line, rent control, she's for rent control. She said, I think, Josh, she was for 50% inclusionary housing at La Cumbre Plaza, which
Majority, yeah.
my kind of eyebrows went up at that one. In eviction, she's for the toughest eviction stuff. So she's for a moratorium on hotels. She's for the sales tax. Alejandra's against the sales tax. So I thought there were a whole host of issues where, I mean, if the point of a debate is to, draw contrasts, I think, there's a lot of contrast to be drawn in that district.
Yeah.
You can see what you want. On this issue of, I'll be there. It was sort of what she was hinting at, but didn't say, was, that Alejandra has had a lot of absences from meetings, and then you brought it out later in the event when you pointed to this press release that the Young Dems put out, accusing Alejandra of missing, I don't know, 60 meetings or something like that. It's kind of a tough issue for her because, the record is what the record is. On the other hand, it was in many cases because she did have some health problems. She's very reluctant to talk about it. She's a very private person, and she certainly can't be faulted for that. So she's kind of in a weird bind, where she missed the meetings, and I missed the meetings because of health reasons. But what does that mean? And I'm not going to talk about it. It's just I don't know. It's a difficult issue for her to be in. The other thing I found most remarkable, and I know you'll have some thoughts on this, as we all recall, Alejandro won 4 years ago by 8 votes over the then incumbent Jason Dominguez, who now showed up at the event as her campaign manager. So what is that all about?
Oh my goodness. It's like Councilmember Gutierrez is such a enigma. Like it is true. The party leaders went to her, asked her to run 5 years ago. She was not somebody who was groomed to be in that spot. She decided to run. And why did they want her to run? Everyone hated Jason Dominguez. Everyone thought he needed to go. He was badgering staff. Just incessantly, when we
Was
talk about.
the arch enemy of or arch foil of Mayor Kathy Murillo, who was a Dem Party favorite, of course.
Exactly. He famously somehow maneuvered to get appointed to the SBCAG board of directors, when traditionally that goes to the mayor of the cities to be on that regional board to make decisions about transportation and other stuff. And he got nominated himself. They picked him, and the Kathy is just like stunned. And then the next week they came back and took it away from him, and Kathy got it. And I think that goes to like one of the huge criticisms of the party is that they don't do anything up here. They do things behind the scenes, like in the moment. Like, well, he won it in the moment, but anyway, so Jason was reviled, right? And so the party wanted him out. And Jason also was just like and I've said this to him, and he knows this, just an attitude problem, right? Just very, very come across very aggressive during those meetings. And so they said, Alejandro, you're local, you were raised here, we'll support you. And they threw all the support behind her. And she went through a couple of campaign managers during that campaign. And people really trusted Darcel Elliott and the party leaders who put their neck out there to say, yeah, she'll be good, right? But Alejandra was never, ever like one of these people who was championing the party, but she went along for the ride, okay? And then she won by 8 votes, oust Jason Dominguez, and everyone's sort of happy. And Jason was very gracious in how he lost, right? He was friendly, and he had a child around this time. I think he got married around this time, and he's doing other things, in his personal life. So things were kind of good. But it's just so fascinating that this person who was the motivation to get her to run, now she is relying on him for political advice. If Jason had better political advice when he was running, he would still be there, because he's a smart guy. He's a lawyer, and he's a Mexican American. He's bilingual. Like he could have been the guy himself, but he was his own worst enemy. And so now she's relying on this. Now, I did talk to her after the debate. She says, I don't listen to any one person. I listen to everybody, and I make my own decisions. And so that's good and bad. Independence is great, but at the same time, politically, we all need somebody who can be a sounding board. Like, you need someone who can help you, direct you, and say, no, 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 do this. And left to your own devices, it's tough. I mean, look at Gavin Newsom, right? Like the master political, strategist, and he's on the outs, and it's like, it doesn't really matter how good you are, what level. You make a couple of missteps and the whole world shifts. And so yeah, it is fascinating. She had Wade Cooper the first time. He's not there.
I think he was lurking in the back there.
Lurking in the back. Okay.
He was.
So yeah, she's listening to a lot of people.
I mean, on Wednesday night he was lurking.
Oh yeah. He was lurking in the back watching. Yeah.
Yeah. And as a policy matter, I mean, let's be blunt here. The realtors really want, the real estate industry really wants Alejandra to win, because right now, as you pointed out, there's a 4-3 majority on the council against rent control. And if the Dem Party manages to flip that seat, although it could get complicated with the District 3, which we'll talk about in a minute, then there's going to be a 4-3 majority for rent control. So that's a big issue. The Prop 33, I don't want to get too in the weeds, but Prop 33 is on the ballot in November as well. That would remove a restriction on buildings constructed after 1995 and single family. I guess it would still exempt single family. That has been limited to the whatever the state says it is, which I guess is what, 5% now, something like 8%. So I think Wendy at one point said she would take it down to 2% in terms of the cap. And so it's a big deal. It's a big deal for people who own apartments and rent apartments out and homeowners and so on. So, uh, I think I think you identified that a couple weeks ago as sort of the driving issue. And the other thing I thought, just to back up a second, the big takeaway or a big takeaway from the evening, and again, I thought you spoke pretty movingly about this. I mean, we had four Mexican American candidates there, and
Yeah.
um, that's what district elections was all about, really. I mean that um, where we had an increasing portion of the city's population of being Latino, but we had no one on the council for many years who was Latino, and that was worth noting. I thought that was a good point you made on that.
I mean, you think about Kathy Maria was the first Latina, and Alejandro Gutierrez is the second. I mean, you think that's just it's stunning. And so to be able to have all of these candidates who are all qualified, I mean, there's just different perspectives and positions on these issues, is pretty amazing. Because in the old days, you would have, you wouldn't consider them front runners probably to win these seats if they were at-large elections. So just because of money, resources, time, all the other people who run for office kind of thing, it makes it uncompetitive. It's hard for working people back then to run. Now, they can run, they offer a salary. So yeah, it is very impressive to see that. This is also a little bit of a generational battle too. We're seeing, kind of some real
Gen Z
insight.
versus Gen X,
Well,
right?
and also just culturally among Latinos, and Mexican Americans in the Hispanic community is, not, we're very different or very diverse, and generationally, not everyone is a Democrat, not everyone's progressive, not everyone's left. Some people are conservative, some people are moderate, some people don't want anything to do with politics. And we're seeing like a little bit of a snapshot of all of them in this contest. It is not wrong or out of the ordinary for conservative Mexican Americans of a certain generation to be wanting to build generational wealth, right? Like it's a thing, and it's very different if you're young now growing up, because if you don't have enough for a down payment, if you don't have inherited money, it's almost impossible. And so things were different back then. But if you, like, for example, if you're first generation, you immigrated to this country and you built yourself up and you got a job and you worked and you worked and you worked and you finally were able to buy a house, like if you did that, right? And that's heroic to be able to do that. It doesn't necessarily mean that you are going to be on the side of rent control. You might be remembering things from your own perspective, and that diversity is what makes the community incredible. It's what makes our country incredible, and so we're seeing all of those things on display. And I mean, it would be quite better if everyone kind of understood that and stopped trying to portray people as heroes and villains, because um, at the end of the day, everyone is a success story. And whether you agree with their politics, that's fair. But it's incredible to see that these people are in these leadership roles.
Yeah, and that's a good transition to District 3, where we had another generational and also ideological change. You have incumbent Oscar Gutierrez, and he's being challenged by Tony Becerra, who runs a martial arts studio, has had a small business in the district for a long time. He talked about how he struggled to keep it alive after COVID, and how he and his family got evicted. He had to move up to the valley for a while. Now he's back. Uh, but Oscar was actually a student of Tony's for a while, and his wrestling coach, I think, for a summer or something like that. And Tony even, said at one point, "I love this man." It was like a Bud Light commercial or something. I don't know what that was all about, but again, interesting. Two very different I mean, you sort of have the mirror image of what's going on in District One, because there you have Oscar is for a rent control, rent cap, and Tony very much against it. In fact, as we went through the litany of questions, city issues, he was against virtually every kind of any kind of regulation whatsoever.
Yeah.
He acknowledged he doesn't have a great handle on all of the specifics of all of the issues, but it was clear he was coming from a pro-business, pro-small business perspective. And anytime anything we asked him about, again, the sales tax, he's against the sales tax. State Street, he wants to reopen it to cars. Oscar wants to keep it closed, or maybe, open a little bit, but he wants to close the 400 block, which is in the district. Obviously, rent control and so on. So what'd you think about that one?
Well, you are absolutely correct in that he is sort of just like Councilmember Alejandro Gutierrez, pretty much a no on all these things. But Tony comes across a lot more likable in these debates. He comes across as somebody who's more authentic. Like he says, I don't understand Prop 33, Jerry. Like I need to look into it. But what I do know is any kind of control is going to make it tough for new people, new
Right.
development, right? So he's very much a person with whose lived experiences are driving his perspective on these issues. And I think that's going to appeal to a lot of people. He has coached a lot of families. He's had that dojo on the west side on San Andres Street for years. And he himself is a renter. So he isn't like somebody coming across as top down, let me tell you what you should think. He's just sharing things from how he has interacted. And so he's not threatened by Oscar at all, and I think that was a real disarming thing, and he's like, I love this guy. He sees him as a kid, a student, a friend, somebody who he's mentored. And to see him show that support to an incumbent who he's trying to take on, I think it shows a lot about his character. It shows a lot about the fact that he respects Oscar. Hopefully Oscar respects him, and they're just doing this thing because they both love it. And so that's a trait that he has. Um, I think that he's going to do better than a lot of people thought on the West Side because of his name recognition. And it's hard to go away from that, like being mad at him, right? Like it's hard to go away thinking like, oh, we don't want that guy on the council. Like even if you disagree with him, it's hard to think that. You just might think, that's his play. And there are stark contrasts with that, as we talked about with Oscar. The whole tenant protection issue, and Oscar openly just said, he has the privilege of living at home with his mother. And so he hasn't had to be evicted. He hasn't had to worry about the threat of that happening to him or a big rent increase. And so, and he just came out with that. It's what he said. And Tony Becerra over here is like, I was evicted because the place I was living wanted their son to move in, and so I had to move. And then he's like, I had to move to Buellton, and so, his American dream, I guess, has not been home ownership; it's been business ownership. And so being able to see all that is there's kind of a contrast. And I wouldn't do too much of a generational thing. Oscar is he's kind of in the middle, right, of all these candidates age wise. And so it's interesting just to see that, Oscar's an incumbent. And I think you asked him the question, like, what is your defining thing on the council? What's the one thing you would point to? I mean, what did you think, Jerry? What did you think of his answer there?
I thought Oscar's best moments were in his opening when he talked about how accessible he is. I mean, he's out there every night. He goes to everything. I mean, we used to say in San Francisco, he would attend the opening of an envelope. He's just everywhere. And he also talked a lot about how responsive he is when he gets calls or emails or texts from people who have issues. I think he said he had responded to 27,000. I wonder how long it took him to count those up. But um, so there's something to be said for that, in a town which, is basically so much of the policy is shaped and driven by technocrats, by the city administrator and the city staff, that it is a valuable thing to be out there and out and about, sort of the opposite of, um, the point that Wendy was making about Alejandra. So I thought he did pretty well. I think, actually, when I asked that question, what's your defining thing? I was thinking he would say, he got those school grounds, the school playgrounds and stuff opened after school, which he was very involved in. And I think he forgot to mention that until his closing or something. He talked about transparency and things like that, which is important. But so again, very stark contrast. Oscar's, he's a Democratic Party guy. He's endorsed by them. He follows the platform and does what they ask him to do. And Tony Becerra is very much of a business person, more of a throwback, I thought, to the way council used to be, where there were a lot of either business people or retired business people on, who were looking out for that perspective. I think that's been a big shift in district elections, is both, the youth for the most part. I would exclude the mayor from that on the council. But he's about the only one that's ever run a business. I guess Mike Jordan to a certain extent, and Megan Harmon's she's
I'm sure Megan Harmon could run a business, Jerry, if she wanted to.
she could do anything. Yeah, she's got a lot of plates in the air. Um,
I want to say about Oscar is he's sort of the face of district elections. Like he's so likable, he's so nice, he goes everywhere, he is at every ribbon cutting, he's got the scissors, he's cutting the ribbons, and that matters. Like that representation, to see his face, to see a Mexican American in that position of leadership, that matters, because young people will see that, and they'll be like, wow, I can do that, I can be there. So and he's very kind, and he wants to get along with people. And so, he has not been a bad council member, right? He's just kind of, that's his representation, is being everywhere, going everywhere, social media, and being the face of the West Side for City Hall. As far as in the room, which was the question we were trying to get at, is like, what policy have you shaped? That was what we're looking for, and he mentioned that he did advocate for continuing the remote public comment, as well as having an app that people can contact the city through. And so those are important things. So this contest is less about personality and style, it's like, because they're both nice people.
yeah, two nice guys.
They're both nice, so it's really going to come down.
Well, I think, I know, for the record, I think both the candidates in District 1 are nice too, Josh. So I'm going to hang you.
Wow, boy,
hang you out to dry on that one, pal.
Alejandro Gutierrez is nice also. I'm talking about how they come across in the debate.
Oh,
the style of that too. And they were District 1, they didn't look at each other. I don't think they.
No, there was no. They were like.
I never saw them shake hands or acknowledge each other. I mean, a little bit of like, I kind of agree, a little bit like of the nonverbal, but there was no interaction. Whereas Oscar and Tony were very much like respectful of each other publicly. So yeah, so this contest is a little different. I mean, this is just going to be like, do you want the nice guy who's there, who does everything, who's sort of the face of the West Side, who grew up here, who's very likable, who's basically going to be a Dem Party guy? Or do you want to have, the small business owner who's also those things in terms of being likable, but clearly is more of he's a registered Republican. He's more conservative. And again, these districts are diverse. We can't assume that anyone is all anything. So, I think where Oscar has the advantage is going to be the ground game. I mean, Tony's going to have to figure out who's going to walk for him and who's going to call and how many doors he's, because if he makes the mistake of thinking of only listening to the people in his head, that's fool's game.
Yeah. Now, does he have any money, Tony?
Well, he hadn't reported any when the last filings were due, and I have not looked since I did that story. I think it took him like till the very end to get his FPPC filing. So he will have to show his filings in his next reports. He's going to get real estate money. He definitely is. He's going to get business money. I don't know how much. Like anything in elections, the earlier you start, the better you do, you know, and so he's
Yeah.
already at a disadvantage there.
Well, it's interesting, that I just think about all the different scenarios, but say say the Democrats succeed in District 1 in flipping that seat. So now, we got our fourth a vote for rent control, but then the real estate industry succeeds in flipping it in District 3. Now you're back to 3-4. I wonder. It just, I don't know. Obviously, we don't have any polling or any way. It's just, my sense is probably District 1's going to be a closer race than District 3. But yet, if the real estate folks are putting money behind Tony, then the Democrats are going to have to expend some resources over there, both in terms of volunteers, primarily in terms. So, they're going to have to take their eye off the ball a little bit in District 1. And as we all know, from the Board of Supervisors races in March, what can happen when that, the Dems just focused so completely on Joan Hartman's race in the
Yeah.
third district that they sort of forgot to campaign for Das Williams, I guess.
Well, Tony running against Oscar Gutierrez definitely helps Alejandra because it means that you're going to have to put resources in that district. If we recall, Oscar got elected in a special election against Mike Vidal, and then he didn't have an opponent the next time he ran. So there's a lot of work that still needs to be done on the west side in terms of reaching voters for. I mean, Kathy was fantastic, right? But I don't know if Kathy's going to be involved. I think she sort of separated herself, and so Oscar's going to have
She
to.
was huge, yeah, in getting him elected I mean, she literally walked him door to door to knock
Yeah,
on doors and showed him how to do it and did everything like that. And then, he had a walkover in the next round. So yeah, I mean it could be kind of interesting. You do get a little bit of Roy Lee vibe off of Tony. There's a very um, a person who's run a business and therefore has had to be of service to his constituents, i.e. his customers,
yeah.
and has been successful in doing that. Not only, has that sensibility, but I think also, knows a lot of people. And I
Yeah.
think we say about Roy, he's in it for the right reasons. I mean, I think Oscar's in it for the right reason as well, but I don't think, well, I don't know. I don't want to make any sweeping statements about that. All right. You got anything else on that? I was looking at the tentative or semi-official list of candidates, for other stuff we're going to have to pay attention to.
Yeah.
Gee whiz, that County Board of Education, which nobody quite knows what it does, that I think there's 3 seats, and the first one, Christy Lozano, who ran against Susan Salcido last time for superintendent, is running in.
Yeah.
It's actually District 2, but there's 2 opponents there, so that's certainly something to keep an eye on because Christie's someone who is a part of that conservative push to get involved with education issues at a grassroots level. That's something, and then
I
uh,
really should like pay attention to what the county office of education board members do, because I just don't, I mean, why is that position so sought after? Like what policy shifts can they make? It would be
I don't know,
interesting to know.
maybe we'll have Cammy on one of these days and she can explain to us what she gets that big salary for doing up there. There's that, and then there's 3 seats um on the Unified School District, one of which is an open seat. So we got to watch that. And then on the City College Board, there's a couple of seats up, but your friend Jet Black Martz, who got pushed out of the District 1 contest because the party, wanted to get behind Wendy. It now is running against Sebastian Aldana, who's one of the fathers of district elections. So what's going to happen there with the party? Who they
Yeah,
get?
I would have loved to have seen Jet Black Merritt stay in the District 1 contest. She's very smart, she's very qualified. But yeah, I think that she'll probably do well in this position. I think, she has the advantage. Sebastian Aldana is another Mexican American he's been on I think he's on the Parks and Recreation Commission. He's served on neighborhood advisory councils over on the east side, and he's well known. People know him, but again, I don't know that he's going to raise money. I don't know that he has the resources to compete with the Dem Party, who's good, who's endorsed Jet. But it's interesting contest, that what's going on there. I don't think Jet's going to lose that spot. Sebastian is a good guy, but again, organization is a big deal, and
So will she get the endorsement, or did she get the endorsement?
she has the endorsement of the
She
Dem
has
Party.
the endorsement.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. And then of course there's the sales tax in the city. And then there's that big bond issue uh, for City College too, which kind of, I don't know how that snuck up on us. I think we're going to have to get Dale Francisco back on the show here to talk about some of those fiscal issues. And maybe our friend Marcia Croninger will come on and talk about City College because uh, she knows a lot about that. She's been on a long time, so not only the politics but also the economics.
Jerry,
Uh,
I know you don't like Goleta as much, but can we talk about Goleta for a
yeah,
second?
yeah. You got a mayor's race and what, a couple council races as well.
Yeah, it's pretty fascinating because there is this uprising against the incumbents because largely over the Goleta Old Town restriping, and also housing, and the objection to the county's housing element and the housing they put sort of on the border of Goleta. But you have Rich Foster running against Paula Perotti for mayor, and you've got Jennifer Smith, who is executive director of the Legal Aid Foundation, running for an open seat on the council. And she's endorsed by the Dem Party, and is working with Mary Rose, and a very qualified, strong candidate, and certainly the front runner for sure. But she's running against a guy named Ethan Woodill, who grew up in Goleta and is a DP high school grad and has lived here most of his life and coached a lot of kids in various sports over the years. And he's umpired, and he's like basically a Goleta dude trying to represent his neighborhood and his community. And so he's not going to have the resources as anyone, but we're seeing this sort of like slate of, I mean, I don't know if they're conservatives. I know Ethan's like libertarianism. I don't know about the others, what their official party registrations are, but we're definitely seeing an anti-government uprising in
And
Goleta.
is it really largely about the striping, the changing in the way that the
Yeah,
park?
people are very upset about the striping. There's a group of business owners who went to the Goleta City Council to say, hey, we're losing money, we're losing business because nobody's coming to Old Town anymore. Um, they have the diagonal back end
Well,
parking.
Josh, you and we should, in the interest of full disclosure, say that I try never to leave the city of Santa Barbara, but you actually dragged me out to Old Town so we could have coffee and talk about the questions we were going to ask. And you personally had experience with using the new parking. How'd that go?
Yeah, and I pride myself. I'm like George Costanza. I am such a good parallel parker. I need like half an inch on each side. I can do it. But this diagonal parking thing, it took me 3 tries. It's kind of tough because you have to pull into traffic and then you've got to cross the bike lane. And I've done it in Santa Barbara on East Beach. For some reason, that seems a little easier. I don't know if there's some more room there, but uh, it's not intuitive. And so, what I think about these things is yes, people with nice cars, with cameras, back cameras, sure, they can do it. Okay. But senior citizens, this is stressful. Like, it's stressful. And why do you want to create that extra stress on people? It's stressful on new drivers, stressful on people who, may not or be used to having a lot of car. I know, I mean, I don't like being around a lot of cars in traffic. My
So, I
reaction
mean,
time,
but the policy argument is what? That it gives you more parking in the same amount of space?
yeah, because if you pull out, more people can park than if they were all straight, but they're only doing it on one side of the street. The other reason too is they've made it one lane in each direction and made bike lanes. And so this is an issue because a lot of the Old Town Goleta businesses like, we're fine. Like, yes, people are coming, people are shopping. It has none of the issues State Street does. Like, and you also have residents who live right behind Old Town. And also, the city of Goleta decided to build 2 roundabouts. So they're doing all this construction on the other side all at the same time. Hispanic Chamber of Commerce is now involved. They showed up at City Hall with these red T-shirts, and this like public works project is turning into an election issue, and it's very much a government doesn't listen to us kind of thing. The elected officials are saying, give it time, let it play out. But if you go to Old Town Goleta, there's definitely fewer people there.
Well, they should know, first of all, old people hate change. And so go to a place called Old Town, you really wonder why you'd want to put a lot of change in right around election time. Uh, what's Kiriako doing? Is he playing in any of these races? I mean,
Uh, James
go
James
ahead.
Kiriakou is not running for re-election this year. He's a good council member.
But
He
is he
listens.
behind the scenes? He used to be a political consultant. I imagine he's having a hard time keeping his fingers out of it.
I mean, he's very effective at what he does, and he is, yeah. I mean, he's talking to both sides here. He's talking to the people who are upset about the restriping. He's talking to the businesses. I think his perspective is that on the whole, it's a benefit to everyone in the district because it's safer. It allows people to ride bikes. There's a lot of families in that neighborhood, and so having
Is that his district? His Old Town in his district?
yes, yes. Although they redistricted it as well, so things shifted a little bit. But he's saying on the whole, it's a lot safer. And once people get used to it, it's going to be fine. And once the construction by the Highway 217 stops, it'll sort itself out. He is listening. He's not one of these strident, you're wrong people. He is listening, and he has said it is a temporary restriping. So if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. But they're definitely making an issue. They don't want to wait a year to turn it back. Like they want it reversed now. And
Yeah,
so
well, I finally stopped driving my 2007 car and I leased a Honda. And so I have to go out there, anytime I get service or do anything, the Honda thing is right there, all the car sales places. So I've had some personal experience of that. It really is a mess. I
yeah,
mean, it's just unspeakable. And it's, we'll see. That's funny that it's an election issue. All right. You got anything else? I liked your piece this morning on Arnaldi's opening up. That was so touching that the woman, I guess it's his daughter, right? That
yes, yes,
he
yes.
bought the business.
She bought the business. It's a new LLC. Arnoldi's is, one of these great Italian restaurants, great building it's in, and she and her husband are redoing it. And the food's the same apparently, but the tablecloths are different.
Tablecloths are white. I don't know. I kind of went with I like the red. That's, got the Harry's look in there. You gotta kind of stick with
That
the
bought those bocce ball tournaments they do. They're so popular. I don't know if you've been there
yeah,
doing them, but
very cool. Well, the other thing about the white is everybody's going to be spilling their Chianti on it, and they're going to find out why they were red for all those years.
exactly. I
Let's
got
see.
a couple of housing stories coming up, but I started back to school teaching this week, so
Oh yeah.
I'm kind of flying on fumes and just kind of putting 2 feet in front of each other. So I'll catch up next week.
Well, I saw you brought one of your students, Remo was there the other night.
Yeah.
Uh, he asked me afterwards. He says, "I was looking at your logo, the Newsmakers logo with the typewriter, but the keyboard on that typewriter is different than the usual keyboard. Where did that come from?" And I'm like, uh, "Google Images." I mean, where I have to ask my daughter, who does all my design work for me
Where it came from. Yeah.
in our high-powered marketing department here at the Newsmakers. All right,
Attention to
brother.
detail. Yeah.
All right, we'll wrap it up there. We'll leave it there, and we will see you next time. Lot of election stuff going on, and uh, so we'll be back to talk. And I think this idea of bringing on either office holders or people who work in the government, as one member of the panel for these is who's obviously not running, to give us some perspective there might be something we can try to. All right.
Yeah. That's a good idea. Okay.
All right, Josh, I'll see you.
All right. Thanks, Jerry. Take care.